The night sky glowed a fierce orange, as if the horizon itself were burning. Embers drifted through the air like fiery snowflakes, landing on trembling hands and frightened faces. Inside the evacuation hall, seniors squinted at crumpled paper maps, turning them around helplessly while the fire's roar grew louder. Then, as one map slipped from an elderly man's hand and landed near a falling ember, it caught within seconds, curling into flames like a warning. It wasn't just paper burning, it was proof that the tools meant to save them were far too outdated for the danger closing in. And that was the truth Sonoma Valley didn't want to admit. The last time the fire came, the seniors had nowhere to run. This time, teenagers would change everything. Maya, 17, was the kind of quiet student teachers often overlooked until they noticed her typing furiously behind her curtain of hair, coding instead of doodling. Raised by her grandmother, Maya carried a memory that refused to fade. The night a wildfire evacuation left Grandma gasping for air, confused and terrified. Because of that, Maya didn't believe technology should only connect people. She believed it should protect them. Carlos, 18, hid pain behind a confident grin. After losing his home to a wildfire 3 years earlier, he rebuilt his sense of safety by building things, systems, models, anything that could outsmart disaster. In his wallet, he kept a charcoal-smudged family photo, the only item salvaged from the ruins. It reminded him daily of what fire could take. Emily, 17, spent weekends volunteering at the senior center. She had seen how panic reshaped older adults in an instant, how shaking fingers struggled to dial numbers, and how even simple instructions became overwhelming when fear stole their focus. Meanwhile, their tech teacher, Mr. Rivers, was the rare adult who didn't shrink students' dreams to match the size of a classroom. Small ideas, he always said, save big lives. So, night after night, Maya worked at her desk with a flickering candle beside her laptop, its flame fragile but persistent, like the hope she refused to lose. Yet, in Sonoma Valley, a bigger problem burned beneath the surface. Seniors who had survived decades of storms, droughts, and fire seasons were now facing something no one talked about loudly enough. They were being left behind by technology. Many moved slowly, relied on walkers or canes, and carried flip phones with cracked screens. Some couldn't read tiny text, others were simply afraid to press the wrong button. Then, as Maya's mind replayed the last evacuation, flashbacks sharpened like broken glass. Seniors spinning in circles with paper maps, unsure which road even led out. A fire-damaged bridge splitting apart, both literally and symbolically. An elderly woman sobbing because she'd forgotten her inhaler in the rush. Those images flickered like scenes from a disaster documentary. Over them, Mr. Rivers' voice echoed from months earlier. Solve a real problem in our community. And suddenly, the stakes stopped being abstract. They were human, urgent, personal. When the class gathered to brainstorm disaster risk reduction solutions, the whiteboard quickly filled with sketches, emergency radios, redesigned maps, solar-powered alarms. However, nothing felt big enough. Nothing felt like the answer. Maya stared at a rough map drawing, remembering her grandmother turning it around and around, panic rising with every wasted second. Then the idea hit her with the clarity of a siren. What if seniors didn't have to figure out maps? She whispered. What if the map guided them? Carlos's head snapped up. Because he'd studied fire behavior for years, his mind immediately raced through wind shifts, slopes, and choke points. If we integrate real-time wind patterns and terrain elevation, he said, the app could predict danger zones before they form. At the same time, Emily leaned in, already imagining large buttons, soothing colors, and a calm voice that didn't bark orders but guided. Turn left, keep moving, you're safe. So, piece by piece, the vision took shape. They named it Code Red Companion, and in their storyboards, a glowing red thread wound through a dark forest map, leading users away from danger like a lifeline. In that moment, ordinary students dared to become protectors. Still, the first real tests were rough, painfully rough. As soon as they connected the app to live fire data, the interface froze and crashed. Carlos muttered under his breath, while unpredictable wind shifts scrambled his models. "It's like the fire refuses to be predicted," he said, rubbing his temples. Even so, the technical problems weren't the worst part. When they did their first senior center demo, several seniors frowned and shook their heads. "We're too old for this app," one woman said softly. Another added, "Technology just makes disasters scarier." Maya's chest tightened. Her grandmother's coughing in the smoky dark returned to her, sharp and immediate. What if they were building something no one would trust? What if their solution became one more confusing thing in an emergency? Worse, tension cracked inside the team. Emily pushed for clearer icons and fewer steps, while Carlos insisted the back-end risk modeling mattered more than pretty buttons. Their voices rose. Maya withdrew into herself, drowning in code as pressure closed in like smoke. On Maya's laptop, a digital fire icon glitched again and again, breaking apart, restarting, failing, just like their attempts. Beside it, the candle flickered wildly, nearly extinguishing. Then Emily, fed up, slammed her notebook shut. "Every senior needs a go bag ready," she insisted. "The app won't matter if they forget their meds again." She was right, and that truth stung, because disasters didn't care about one perfect solution. They demanded layers, tools, habits, practice, and calm. The turning point came late one night when Carlos stared at his fire model in silence. After a long moment, he whispered, "Wait, what if we combine wind speed and elevation layers?" He began overlaying data, and suddenly glowing arrows appeared, predictive pathways showing where the fire might move next. Maya's eyes widened. Immediately, she integrated the new system, fingers flying. Emily tested the interface on the spot, and for the first time, everything flowed. The icons were simple, the voice guidance sounded steady, the steps were fewer, the screen didn't overwhelm. When they returned to the senior center, heads nodded instead of shaking. Hands didn't flinch away from the phone. And when Maya handed the device to her grandmother, Grandma followed the on-screen arrow with ease, smiling with a confidence Maya hadn't seen since before the last fire. Later, back in her room, the candle's flame stood taller, steady, bright, no longer trembling. Then, just after midnight, Sonoma Valley was torn awake by the wail of sirens. Maya jolted upright. Carlos was already texting the group. Emily's heart hammered as she grabbed her volunteer vest. Outside, a red glow pulsed against the sky. Wildfire had jumped the containment line. Again. At the senior community center, panic spread faster than smoke. Elderly residents clutched bags, walkers, inhalers, some forgetting all three. The electricity flickered, throwing the room into waves of shadow and trembling light. That's when Maya's phone buzzed. Code Red Companion. Route A safe. Evacuate calmly. Relief rippled through the room until the wind shifted with a roar, sweeping across the valley like a beast. On the student screens, Route A flipped from safe green to burning red. Gasps filled the room. But then, within seconds, the app recalculated. Route B illuminated. The digital map pulsed like a beating heart, reacting, adapting, guiding. Each shifting pathway mirrored the unpredictable danger outside, and every update felt like a lifeline thrown into chaos. Now, the stakes weren't theoretical. The fire was coming. The seniors needed direction. And the thing they built in a classroom was about to face its ultimate test. As soon as responders confirmed the evacuation order, the students moved. Carlos fed real-time wind and terrain data into the system, hands shaking but precise. Maya synchronized emergency alerts so the guidance stayed current. Meanwhile, Emily positioned wheelchairs and walkers, speaking gently but firmly as she lined people up. The app's calm voice repeated, "Turn left, follow the path, you are safe." Outside, smoke curled through the streets, ash drifted like gray snow. Maya spotted her grandmother wobbling, breath shallow, fear rising. The old memory clawed at Maya. Not again, not like last time. But this time, she had something her younger self didn't. She leaned toward the phone and spoke through the app's guidance feature, steadying her voice, the way her hands had once shaken. "Grandma, you're okay. Slow breaths. I'm right here." Her grandmother steadied, gripping the phone like a torch. Then, without warning, a flare-up exploded nearby, cutting off the path ahead. Flames roared across the asphalt. The group stopped short, trapped by heat and chaos. Seniors froze. Responders shouted for alternatives. Maya stared at the screen. Carlos reran the model, fast. Emily took trembling hands in hers, grounding people with touch and eye contact. For a heartbeat, the map glowed, paused, and held its breath. Then, a new route lit up, a single shivering path of gold sliced across the digital terrain. The students looked up, scanning the street, and there it was, in real life, a narrow alley, smoke-filled but clear, tight, ugly, and absolutely passable. The golden thread. Not magic, not luck, a product of preparation, data, and the courage to keep building even when people doubted them. Together, students and seniors moved toward it, step by step through choking smoke, following calm instructions through chaos, each footfall a small victory over fear and fire. When the final head count came in at dawn, relief swept through the haze. Every senior was safe. A firefighter stepped forward, helmet under his arm, voice steady with pride. Not a single elder left behind tonight. The students went still, letting the weight of those words settle. Maya rushed to her grandmother, wrapped in foil blanket, but smiling, truly smiling, for the first time since the fires began years ago. Nearby, Emily and Carlos exchanged exhausted high fives, soot streaking their faces as the rising sun pushed through the smoke and turned the sky pink and gold. Later, on Maya's porch, the candle that once flickered at the edge of burnout sat untouched in bright sunlight. Its flame was no longer needed. Hope had found new fuel in teamwork, courage, smart planning, and a community that finally refused to abandon its most vulnerable.